to be Carter to get food.
Is anybody home? Is anybody there? Or is it just that nobody cares?
Welcome everyone, good morning. Does everybody have their Eggo waffles and rainbow jello? Shirley Temple maybe? You're all feeling groovy this morning. Welcome. My name is Vanessa Hatakeyama. I am the Executive Director here at the Japanese American Museum of San Jose.
Hooray!
Yay, yay! And of course, our mission is to collect, preserve, and share Japanese American history, art, and culture, which we've been doing since 1987. It's so exciting to have you all here today for the opening of our latest rotating exhibit. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge our outgoing 2025 rotating exhibit gallery sponsor, Penny V. Phillips. Penny, if you raise your hand. Penny is so wonderful. She is a docent here at JAMs and has really done so much in so many ways for our museum, and reluctantly allowed me to acknowledge her today. But thanks to Penny's generous support, we had a full slate of rotating exhibits last year. And so thank you so much, Penny. This year we're transitioning to a new sponsor, but we wouldn't have gotten here without you. So thank you so much.
My honor, my honor.
Yes, thank you so much, Penny. We're so lucky that, you know, JAMs is a grassroots community museum, and it's our volunteers, it's all the people that show up every day that power it, much like this exhibit and much like the movement that Chisa will talk a little bit more about. So there was a group of folks who kind of dreamed up this exhibit and helped with the content and all the content and design. But the one that I get introduced to you all today, which you probably all know her. Raise your hand if you already know who Chisa is. Chisa Masunaga, a lot of fans here, yeah. Chisa, of course, is our collections and exhibit curation manager. She started on our team as a staff in 2022, but as many of you know, she volunteered for the museum long before that. In the old pictures, it looks like she's like 13, but I think she's like 16. But you know, she's been with JAMs on and off since then. I think it was like 2016, which doesn't sound like that long ago, but it's a decade ago, so it's always shocking. But she's really brought a new energy and curiosity and her researcher's eye to our rotating exhibits, and then also her lived experience as a Japanese national who's involved in the Japanese American community and the JA story. She has really expanded our Japanese language interpretation, so you'll see that today's exhibit is bilingual, English and Japanese. But she's also really helped us shape our rotating exhibit program by examining who's included in the story and how we engage with history. So for those of you who already got to see the exhibit, I hope you felt really immersed in a process, because history is a process. And we're making it right now. You all being here today at this opening of this exhibit, it's history, and come back in 20 years and there might be an exhibit about it. So we do have photographers taking photos. So who knows? Someday you guys all might end up on these walls as part of what we're doing. But Chisa's really been sort of the creative partner, and my creative partner, driving the vision for vitalizing the museum and just evolving our exhibit program and how we approach exhibits. So it's my pleasure to introduce her today to talk a little bit more about the exhibit. So let's welcome Chisa.
Thank you, Vanessa. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today, and then especially I'm a little bit emotional because it turned out really well, as you guys see here. a lot more than I was thinking, honestly. It truly means so much to me. I can see all my friends, families, and everyone's here. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for coming. For those of you I have not yet met, I'm Chisa Masunaga. I'm a collection and exhibit curation manager here at the museum. I've been overseeing exhibit here for about a year, a little bit more, but the last year is more like a keep continue our pre-existing exhibit. So from this year, this is my actually first exhibit that I developed from the concept to the exhibit illustration. that made this project both very exciting and at a time it's also deeply humbling, and because I learned a lot about the Redress movement. So before anything else, I wanted to begin with gratitude, of course, to those who shared your stories, and then those who open your photo album and then bring the picture from your house to me. Also provide them a lot of memories with me. Even sometimes this memory about this movement or the before that is very painful for some people, but thank you so much for sharing your memory with me. This exhibit exists because of the generosity. And I also want to express my deep appreciation to our exhibit team. Yay! The exhibit are never created by just me, which is one person. It's definitely a collective effort. So the designer who will translate my idea into the physical space, and then staff and volunteer who edited text for me, and then put the panels up, and then put all the prop item all over to make the atmosphere very 70s. And then this exhibit required a patience and flexibility during the course of this creation, especially because we are building something that is intentionally still evolving. I am sincerely grateful to each of you. Thank you so much for our exhibit team. I'd also like to thank you for our sponsor and then supporters, research, fabrication, recording oral history, and designing an immersive environment require the resources. Your support is not only financial, but it affirms that this history matters. Especially that San Jose's Redress story deserves the space, attention, and preservation, of course. Let me a little bit talk about how I started this exhibit. When I began planning what's next after the amazing Yurika's art exhibit, what I'm gonna do with this room, I asked myself a simple question: what is missing? What kind of topic or story do we need to deepen from this current permanent exhibit? So I wanted to explore whatever the topics that is not in the permanent exhibit, or the information is small, and I wanted to use this rotating exhibit room to make it deeper. So the first thing that came up was the Redress movement. We have a small panel, like we have a 3-ish panel on the gallery wall, but that's it. There is no personal story, there is no actual people who work behind the scene. I wanted to capture those stories. Once I started doing the research about the Redress movement, very soon I encountered the first and then the biggest challenge. That is, there were not enough materials to do this exhibit. In our own museum collections, there were very limited documentation about and related to the Redress. And then when I searched other archives, I found more, but there's still not much. So, and especially not about San Jose. So even in carefully researched book about the national Redress movement, San Jose's story is unfortunately very, very small on the paper. So that was surprising, because I know so many of you who involved that era and then this movement. I know somebody who drove the senior to San Francisco for testimony, somebody who cooked the udon for the people who at the Day of Remembrance, or all other helpers or behind the scene people I know. But none of those stories are on the archive or collection, or even our archive doesn't have those stories. So that was surprising, and then it was frustrating, honestly. So I wanted to understand also the grassroots side of the movement, of course. So not only the well-known leaders or politicians, but also the people who attended house meetings, and the people who opened their homes to have a meeting. Those people who cooked, people who made the phone calls, organized, and then those voices, again, your voices are very difficult to find in the archives. So that frustration of wanting to know more, but I couldn't access to the information, was became a part of my motivation for this exhibit. Exhibit is not only about the presenting what we already know, but also the acknowledging what we still need to be documented. So that's why I need your input. So Redress Movement is often described as a grassroots movement, but what about what actually that means? The Redress Movement, it means that everyday people did extraordinary work. So that means the grassroots. That makes the Redress Movement grassroots. They organize the living room, like we have here. They ask their community to share the painful memories. They build the coalitions. They push for the accountability. So you guys put a lot of effort to capture Issei and Nisei's story, but what about Sansei's stories? What about people who worked behind the scene? So that's the part I really wanted to focus on, and make sure to include this Redress exhibit today. The Civil Liberty Act was signed 1988, and that's almost 40 years ago. So we are now at the critical moment as a grassroots museum dedicated to the community history. We need to preserve, share, collect, preserve, and then share the Redress Movement stories. This exhibit is in many ways response to this urgency. So you will notice that this gallery is designed as a home or somebody's house. So I actually intended to make this house as on the 5th Street, because if you look through the window, that's actually on the 5th Street in the 70s. Thank you, Bruce, for providing the street picture from 1970s. So please look through the window, and it feels like you are in a house, one of the house on the 5th Street, and then think about the era. If you are in the house meeting, where are you gonna sit? And then please reflect or share your story using little tags, or I also prepared the index card to share your stories. One of the central goals of this project is to build a collective archive of the San Jose's Redress stories and histories. Not curated by just the museum alone, but created together with you. So this exhibit is not just belong to the museum, but it belongs to you. So I would like to recognize individuals who generously contributed to the research and then documenting of this exhibit, for sharing their memory of house meeting, and then providing me the information of what is house meeting, and then what's the part of the Redress movement nationally. We conducted this first house meeting interview on the yellow couch you're going to see in the exhibit. Thank you, Julie Yumihata. Is she here today? Okay. And then Cassie Higuchi here, Jen Kawasaki, and Richard Katsuda. He's not here today, but those who helping me creating our core of this exhibit. Thank you so much. Finally, I would like to recognize two very important individuals who many of you already know, Tom Izu and Susan Hayase. Both are very active from the early stage of Redress Movement, of course, but from the early organizing effort to continue carry forward the community engagement rooted in the Redress legacy. Both Tom and Susan generously shared their insight from the beginning of this exhibit and until yesterday. So so thank you so much. Let me invite them to this to the podium to get the word from them a little bit. Thank you so much.
Hello, can you hear me all right? Yes. If you can't hear me, do something, or Susan here will like hit me or something. I prefer you just to wave. I'm Tom Izu and
Susan Hayase.
Yeah, and first I'd like to thank the museum for giving the opportunity to all of you and ourselves to be part of creating this unusual exhibit. I'm very proud of the museum for doing this. And also I want to thank all the people here, and there are particular people, some of you have already been named, who helped and will continue to help develop the archive Chisa just mentioned. And I especially want to thank Chisa. Oh, she's over there. Because she's incredibly creative and open-minded and willing to get out there to develop our understanding of our local history. And she's a real prize for this museum. So what I'm going to do, though, right now is I'm going to share a little bit about our personal histories. We're both going to share something about our personal histories. And we're going to go back to the beginnings of our involvement in the Redress Reparations movement. I think this is fitting because this exhibit uses kind of a people's history sort of style. That is a history told by regular, normal people, not necessarily famous people. Now, I know some of you who know me a little bit will question the normal part on my part, but I'm trying really hard, and that's what counts to be a regular person. So,
at least we're regular. So Tom and I had the benefit of going to college during the Asian American student movement. It was healing and it was empowering. It was healing by, some of us grew up very isolated and it allowed us to be with other Asian Americans, but it was also empowering because the whole point of the Asian American student movement at that time was to change the world. And we really wanted to change society and change the world. And that spilled over into the community. Many of us wanted to go back to the community. And so Tom and I met at the Nihonmachi Outreach Committee in 1979 and 1980. That's when we joined. Oh, and so Tom, what was your impression of the redress movement at the beginning?
well, as a student, I was really excited to hear Asian American students talk about the fact that they wanted to go for redress for what happened to Japanese Americans. And it made me feel very, very proud to be a Japanese American. At that time, I really hadn't felt like that before. And I was particularly proud because it meant that I had a role to play in seeking justice and doing something for my parents and grandparents for what they went through. And what about you?
So one of the things that was really exciting for me, I grew up in an all-white neighborhood in Southern California, and coming to San Jose Japantown was really exciting because of all the Japanese Americans who were here in the community, which I had no experience with. But I realized that part of developing a really healthy racial identity is understanding people are really different. You know, people in the community are not all the same. And that goes for people of all generations. Also, I noticed Tom, and I thought he was really cute, and I thought he was funny, and I also really admired his politics.
Well, I thought you were cute too. I don't remember how many years ago. This is a long time ago. You look different. But I also noticed Aunt Susan at the time, she was in the San Jose Taiko group, and she had these big muscles. And she could really pound those taiko drums. And it was so, seeing that, I decided I should do whatever she asked me to do. So when she asked me, okay, are you willing to change? You know, when women do stuff, well, I don't want to genderize this, but in relationships, if somebody says, are you willing to change? That's pretty important. So I was smart enough to say, okay.
And the first thing to go was your 70s hairstyle.
Yeah. So now we're going to move along. The redress movement was not business as usual. It was very transformational, not only in regards to the national politics.
A groundbreaking event during the redress movement was that in the grassroots movement led by the National Coalition for Redress Reparations, Sansei and Nisei worked together, shoulder to shoulder, and that was difficult. But why was that important, and how did we do it?
This generational thing, I learned that generational politics makes no practical sense and is very limiting. It's not your age or generation that indicates what you're going to do or how you're going to do it. It's your politics and your openness to change and being part of change. So, what would you like to add?
So, I think it's also really important, you know, sometimes we make generalizations about things that happened in the past. So it wasn't all Sansei who were involved in the redress movement. There were Sansei who were more concerned about their careers and they were shying away from politics. There were Nisei who were former incarcerees but who were not interested in redress, possibly because it was a very controversial issue. So we looked for people and found a lot of people. A lot of people were drawn to the movement though, because I think there was a real hunger for justice. Let's see. But you'll notice that Tom and I are not in costume. Tom, what were you wearing in the 80s?
Well, generally clothes. I'm going to tell a short story here. When I first came to this community, 1980, right after I got out of college, I worked at the UI Kai, and there was a couple of other guys. They're not here. Oh, I could say anything I want about them, but we were all Sansei guys, and the president of the board at that time, the UI Kai, was a man named Akira Kamiya. He was very stern guy, and he actually really intimidated me. But he turned out to be somebody who was just a wonderful man and this incredible heart and care. So anyway, I was there working at UI Kai, wearing what I usually wore when I was in college, which is a t-shirt and jeans and zori, sandals, zori. And so one day though, Akira comes and he looks kind of pained and he goes, you guys, the two other guys I was working with also usually wore zori or sandals. And he looks at us and he goes, there's been a lot of complaints about you in the board, because the board was all Nisei, and they said, can you guys at least wear shoes when you're at work? And so we looked at each other and said, oh, okay, sure. So I did. I wore a t-shirt and sometimes a button shirt when it was formal, and jeans, and I wore tennis shoes, and that was fine. So that was my costume. That's why I have a hard time figuring out a costume to wear.
So, I Googled 80s fashion, and according to 80s fashion, so one of the options is look like Madonna, right? But in the 70s, when I was in college, late 70s, when I was in college, I wore jeans and a jeans shirt covered with little enamel pins, and I wore platform huaraches. And I was going for the Marlboro woman look, I think. But then I had to get a job, so I had to figure out what I was going to wear. My mother was very impressed. I got a job as an engineer, and she bought me this polished leather briefcase with brass buckles, and it was really fancy. But I wore jeans and kind of this t-shirt that looked like it had exploded because it had all these fringy things on it, and blue Birkenstocks. That's what I wore in the 80s to work. Anyway, I probably look like someone's kid.
So part of the redress movement is that there were many transformations, and I think we're going to add to the exhibit some of these personal recollections of transformations, how people changed, and also in particular I'm really concerned about capturing what I know of the Nisei. A lot of them aren't here anymore, but how some of them really changed as well. So we're going to be compiling these stories, and some of you might have your own stories. But one thing I wanted to share, another kind of transformation, is our understanding. So we learned a lot about the political system in this grassroots movement. A big lesson we learned is that it was a really big ongoing battle. After we got the bill passed and signed, we still had to get the money allocated, which was another whole battle, and people don't know how long that took. We weren't going to really get shortchanged after, as a community. We had to fight, after that we even had to fight battles about eligibility. Like some people were not going to get redress for all sorts of very stupid reasons. So there's so many different kinds of things that all of us learned and personal changes we went through. So I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with Chisa, and I know Vanessa will help make sure we don't have Chisa have a nervous breakdown or anything, but it's so exciting to have all of these different stories that we can now access and bring out to everybody.
And we really would like people to reflect on the redress struggle and also the redress victory and what happened afterwards. So even if you weren't involved, we hope that people think about it and contribute your thoughts. So when redress was towards the end, Tom and I experienced some personal tragedies. From 1989 to 1991, we lost 3 of our parents, and we were very depressed and sad. We also, had put off having kids for many years, and we decided we better do it. And so we decided to have Tomio and later Kiyoshi. But we felt like even though we were very busy, we were both working full time, that we wanted to still make a contribution, and we figured that we should probably try to organize in our heads what kind of contribution we wanted to make, and so we wanted to have a political goal. So why don't you describe what our political goal was?
Well, I think we decided our main goal was to make sure the Japanese American community here that we work in belong with, does not drift to the right and become real conservative. And Ronald Reagan was the president during part of this time, and so that was a big concern we had. How would you like to describe it?
Yeah, I think, a lot of people do describe the Japanese American community as conservative. And I think sometimes, I don't know if that's politically conservative or personally conservative and risk averse. But what we were working with also, in addition to the national push to the right, was that we were still suffering under the erasure of our history. We were fighting back with all the things that had been unleashed by the Redress Movement, but we were also fighting assimilation and disempowerment and issues about the sustainability of Japantowns. Also, there were renewed attempts to turn the Redress victory into a model minority story. And a lot of people did not know anything about the political lineage that fueled the grassroots movement. And this came out of the civil rights movement, the Black liberation movement, the anti-war movement, the struggle for Asian studies, the internationalism, and also the defense of Japantowns against urban renewal and redevelopment. So I think a lot of people started to get more Asian American studies, but a lot of times that was a little bit homogenized and generalized. And so we were really concerned about that.
So when we were asked to speak about and write about the World War II time period, we always talked about the redress movement. A lot of people usually just focused on the camps, like what happened, which I think was an important thing to do, but the redress movement part usually got left out. So we really wanted people to understand what that was about, especially from this grassroots point of view.
And we also wanted our kids to understand some of the things that we had learned. And so Tomio, when he was 2 or 3, his big question was, can we go to Japantown?
We accomplished a little more, I hope. But going to the present, when we came back full time, meaning we were retired or had more time, we looked around to try to figure out what was going on in the world, in the country, and we learned this from the political training we got through the NCRR and the grassroots movement, how to figure out, well, what can we do now if we're going to put some more time in this community? We convened something we called the San Jose Unfocused Group, and some of you were part of that. I think Jane is here, Kathy Bowman, and the point of it was to see how we can reactivate some of our old comrades from the redress movement in that time period. Ultimately, after trying a bunch of stuff, doing some political programming here at the museum, which some of you may not known it was political programming, but it was called the Don't Exclude Us, because we were trying to get people to see how the community needs to bring back some of the spirit of the redress movement and apply it to what we were starting to see happening to other people, including other immigrant groups in the community. Today, we don't have to explain to most people that our democracy and our democratic institutions are in grave danger, and we've suffered serious assaults. So I'm not sure if we can call that an advancement, but it's an advancement in our knowledge, but things are pretty dire right now.
So personally, I feel very strongly that we owe it to our parents and grandparents to fight like hell to defend democracy and build a new and stronger multi-racial democracy now. We also owe it to people like Fannie Lou Hamer, who aren't Japanese American, but who founded the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party when black people were kept out of voting and out of political conventions, and who also fought like hell to make the world a better place for all of us. We hope that learning about the grassroots redress movement and reparations movement will help, because it shows us all that it's possible to unite across a broad range of people. It's possible to defeat the prejudice against political activism and political differences or discussion. And we owe it to our kids and their kids to leave something substantial that they can use to fight back against oppression, as well to aspire to the creation of peace, equality, and beauty. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let me briefly make an announcement, and then also about a little bit of inside the galley. The speech from Tom and Susan, and then speech from me. We kept telling you this is your we would love your input. So there are 3 ways to contribute to this exhibit. So first is inside the galley, of course. So if you already see inside the galley, there's some like a space around, or like an empty corkboard, or a little bit of a gap between. That is intentional, not something I forgot to put the panels up. So because I wanted to include your input to our wall officially, so I made a space intentionally. So you probably see the empty hook with a little bit empty tag on it. That's please write down anything so that related to the topics that next to the hook. So for example, there is an organized, or there is a celebration, there is a pilgrimage, a public history, or memory. So anything related to those topics, please write down on the tags and then submit through, like just put on the hook. So we would love to get your feedback too. So even if you are, of course, many of you also was born after the 1970s or 80s, if you have any question about those topics or anything, please let us know. I would love to include those questions and make this exhibit more easy to understand, and then also inspiring you guys. So second one is I would love to, so using this exhibit, as again, this is a house. So I love to use this exhibit using for the oral history recordings. So I will conduct a lot of private oral history sessions, or like a recording about the Redress Movement. So if you know anybody who knows about the era or knows about the Redress Movement, any type of memory or story, I would love to capture. So please talk to me after this program, and I would love to have your contact information too. And then third, lastly, this exhibit will open until end of September. So we're gonna have a few programs related to the Redress movement. So please sign up for our e-news if you are not signed up for that. I'm gonna keep sending more information, what's new, what's happening, or what kind of program we're gonna do in next few months. So thank you so much. Yeah.
So another round of applause for Tom, Susan, and Chisa for their very righteous remarks. Did I use it right? I've been trying to use more 70s like parlance to get in the spirit, but I'm a child of the 80s. So thank you all so much. As you can see, there's just so much love and work that went into this, and it is an evolving process. And we are so excited to have you all as a part of that as we move forward in exploring this topic. And really with Chisa talking about uncovering the untold stories and expanding the narrative that we have in our gallery, part of that is really expressed through the rotating exhibits with our slate of exhibits that we have for you this year. This year we really did want to honor the Sansei, right? Because Tom was talking a lot about how the Sansei were really trying to honor the Nisei and the Issei, and you know there's generational recognition, but also sometimes challenges and tension that that we all have to work to overcome. And now being a yonsei, I have like the sansei to deal with, but it's fine. But they're great, like my parents. But this year again, we really wanted to recognize this activist generation, right? Who really founded so much of the organizations and initiatives that we have in our community today. A lot of that really formed in the 70s and through movements like Asian American Studies and also for Redress. So, we're really excited to announce that this year, for our next exhibit, we are continuing that journey to honor Sansei with an exhibit on Judy Oyama, who's here today. Judy, do you mind waving? Sorry, I didn't warn you about this. There's Judy. So Judy is a legendary skateboarder, if you don't already know, because I'm sure you've seen a lot of the press, and if anybody follows her on Instagram, you know that girl works out. She works hard. And so we're really excited to honor her for our next exhibit, which will be opening, I think, in October. And so, again, honoring Sansei stories that maybe we haven't really heard before. A lot of people maybe know Judy as a skateboarder, but maybe don't know that she's an amazing designer and also an artist. So we're really excited to uncover that story with her. Again, one last plug for Penny, because thank you so much, Penny, for being our 2025 rotating exhibit sponsor. This year, we're excited to announce the sponsors for this year's exhibit. This exhibit specifically was funded by the Aratani Care Fund, where we're very grateful for their ongoing support for our exhibits, but also our 2026 rotating gallery sponsor, which is the Henry and Tomoe Takahashi Charitable Foundation for this year. So they don't have a representative here, but I know that their philanthropic giving affects so many people in the community. So round of applause for the Takahashi Foundation. Again, thank you all so much for being here. As we've been saying over and over, history is a process. And right now you are all making history by being a part of this community. And how many people here were actually involved in Redress or in the movement of the 70s? Because I know some of you, there we go, there's a hand there. Don't be shy. No, there's, Gary, I see you, little shy wave there. But again, amongst you are really the people who made some of this really historic work happen. And so it's such a great opportunity to gather and speak with them and ask questions. If you are inspired by the work that we do here at JAMsj, inspired by our approach that we're taking to history and to exhibits, really trying our best to involve the community to make sure that you see yourselves in exhibits and that your voice is in the exhibits. We, of course, call you to support us in whatever way feels right for you. You can talk to Mallory over here about being a volunteer, right? You can become a member, and Chisa mentioned e-news. And always there's the option to donate. If you are a social media person, I'm guessing this front row here are probably social media people. Chloe here runs our social media channels at JAMsj Official. So please follow us on social media, because email gets crazy sometimes. Sometimes I just want to see the pictures. And so if you still want to know what JAMsj is doing without having to read the emails, the social media channel, Chloe does a great job at curating that. And of course, there's 2027 exhibits to be sponsored. And if any of you is so inspired by the work you see and you would like to have a greater part of it, we are also going to be looking for a 2027 rotating exhibit sponsor. And if anybody is interested and wants to know more about that, please come talk to myself or Chisa. But again, got to start early because the year's already going by really fast. But last of all, again, we're so excited. So congratulations to all the team for everything that you guys did today. Raise your hand if you were a part of either the creative, content, installation teams. You guys, like all those people who look really tired over there back here. We also have to thank who enjoyed an Eggo waffle this morning and how long it's been since you had that experience. Yes, round of applause. Yes, so thank you to Ruth. To Ruth and Cindy for also providing refreshments, but of course Judy and Tess for toasting up all those Eggo waffles. And then also, of course, to Jen, if you enjoyed a Shirley Temple, Jen is back there bartending for us today. So, yay! So again, thank you all so much for being here this morning. We hope you have time to really browse the exhibit and immerse yourself in that history and also participate. So we invite you into our home. Please enjoy house meetings. Thank you so much.
Try to see behind you, deeply buried within our past. Will we ever find you? Is anybody home? Is anybody there? Or is it just that nobody